Welcome to New Business Networking Radio, a podcast dedicated to help you make the most of your professional networking efforts, both online and offline. And now, without further ado, here's your host, my hubby, Dave Delaney.
Welcome to episode 35 of NBN Radio. I am your host, Dave Delaney, and I am thrilled to have you here with me today. Thank you so much for joining me. My guest today is Deb Evans, president at Franchise Foundry and co-host of Social Geek Radio. Deb and I had a lot of fun talking about networking at conferences. She provides valuable information about what you should be doing before, during, and after attending networking events and conferences and trade shows and all of that. So if you do these things, if you go to these things, you're going to learn a lot. Before I get started, I'm really grateful that you take the time to listen to this show and that you've subscribed. And if this is your first time, well, then welcome to the show. I hope you enjoy it. I normally have a networking tip submitted by a listener, and that listener should be you. And all I want you to do is, everybody has a networking tip. Everybody has a tip about attending conferences or about a CRM they like or about business card etiquette or whatever it is. Everybody has tips. You all do. Take a second and visit speakpipe.nbnradio.com, or you can visit nbnradio.com and you'll find the link right there. Click the link, record a little bit of audio with a networking tip of your own. Please do this. I absolutely love to hear from you, and I love including your voice on the show. It means so much to me. It sounds so good to have you a part of the show. So please take a second. Don't be shy. And if you've done it before, do it again. I mentioned before, Brad Ferris is one of those guys who submitted it really early on. And later on, he ended up becoming a guest on the show. So anything is possible. I began my interview with Deb by asking what Franchise Foundry is. And then I flubbed about a conference I thought she organized. Hey, I'm sorry. I'm the only guy doing this show. I do my own fact checking, and unfortunately, I bugger things up from time to time. So sorry about that, Deb. Okay, let's listen to this interview because Deb has a lot of great tips for you to consider the next time you're attending a conference.
Well, Franchise Foundry works with emerging or new franchise brands to help them get launched. And it's exciting to talk to new entrepreneurs that saying, I've got this great concept. I want to franchise it. And we do an assessment. We go, no, it's not ready for franchising. Or it's, yes, this is awesome. How can we help you? And we help them from the very beginning stages of a FDD, which if you're not familiar with is the franchise disclosure document, to social media, to their leadership, to, you name it, we can help them do it. So as you can tell, I get really excited to work with new brands. And if there's a brand that needs a little help and a boost to build their brand and make it a little stronger, we do that as well.
And you also organize Franchise Fest, right?
No.
Oh, you don't? I thought you did.
No. I help with the FranTech conference that is all franchising and technology and social media.
Okay.
So that could be what you're thinking about. And that's 4 years in. Started it in your neck of the woods in Nashville years ago under my own umbrella. And then the International Franchise Association graciously took it over. It's like, yes, thank you.
When you do the conference, or and I know you attend a fair amount of conferences as well. What are some networking tips that you've learned in your years of doing this?
Well, certainly taking advantage of social digital platforms like podcasting to, get that word out and spread the word that, you're going to be at this event and how can you meet up? Because those real life experiences, I think, are missed by so many of us that live in that digital world. We connect, and you and I knew each other years before we actually met in person. And that was great. But, so those events that are in-person events, I use the digital space to promote it and then say, how can we meet up? So we do tweet ups and meetups and I know you are familiar with my Charity Miles ambassadorship. So that, we'll use the Charity Miles app where we'll gather and we'll say, let's all walk for a cause. And we will walk and explore the city. So, you go to these conferences and sometimes you're in Atlanta for the first time or Vegas or wherever it might be. And what better way to take advantage of that conference or event and gather a bunch of folks and say, let's walk and explore the city. So I'll map out a route. I'll use Google Maps and I'll map this route out and say, well, let's explore the city. We'll open up our Charity Miles app. So we'll walk for the wounded warriors or cancer or Alzheimer's or whatever it might be. And so there's so many different win-win situations here. You're networking, you're talking and meeting people for the first time in real life, you're exploring a city. It's just, and we're using technology and just that real life experience.
Let's say you're going to a conference you've never been to before and you want to meet people there. What do you do?
Well, I'll search LinkedIn. So we'll use LinkedIn, we'll use Facebook, we'll use our own blog post to put that word out that we'll be there, who would like to meet up. We'll use the other social platforms. Twitter, oh my God, Twitter's really cool for getting the word out that you're going to be attending an event and where you will be. And of course, then live tweeting during the event. So I've done that a lot of times that I'm live tweeting, and then I'll get a tweet from someone. I remember years ago at IFA, Brooke Howe, who used to be with Smart Brief, and she's in Washington. I'm in Houston, but we were in Vegas, and she said, "I'm watching your tweets." I said, "I'm watching your tweets. Where are you? Let's meet." Tweeting, okay, we're going to meet at the podium under the IFA sign, and then we met in person. It's like, this is so cool. So you take advantage of that digital space to meet, physically.
Right.
Shake that hand.
Right. Which is so important. I wrote a lot about that in my book, actually, about planning tweet ups and meetups, in different markets. And yeah, I used to do the same thing when I would attend events and conferences. I still do.
Yes.
Even actually, each time I'm back in Toronto, where I'm from originally, I always plan a tweet up when I'm coming home, and usually get like anywhere around 15, 20 people that come out. And sometimes it's people I've never met before. Other times it's, folks that I've known for years, but it's always good to catch up with people and meet new people that, you may have talked to online, but never actually in person, in real life, quote unquote.
I agree. And there's impromptu meetups. So, I remember going to Connecticut a few years ago, and I did went to the subway corporate offices and did a great tour. And I knew that there were folks in Connecticut that I just couldn't pinpoint that I hadn't met before. So I just did the Eventbrite and just said, I'm going to be at the Norwalk Inn, at the bar. Whoever would like to meet up, let's have a drink and let's meet in person. And I threw it on my LinkedIn, I threw it on Facebook and whatnot. Dave, there were like 24 people.
No way,
there.
That's great.
And of course, I'm taking pictures. Now, I have to say, too, there was a celebrity with me. I was traveling with BJ Emerson, and I know you know BJ.
Yeah.
So whether they were coming to meet me, I don't know, or BJ, whatever, the two of us, but we had quite a little group there. And I had someone say, oh my gosh, I've tried to plan a monthly networking event, and I never get more than 6 or 7. So sometimes those impromptu events, people are like this in the spur of the moment. I can go tonight. I think I'll be there. And it's like, it's really cool. I was going to go to the bar anyway and have a drink with friends. So
why not?
It worked out. Why not?
Yeah, actually, I interviewed Hugh Forrest on the first episode of this podcast, who's the director of social media, the director of South by Southwest Interactive. And he said a line to me that's really stuck with me, which is surrender to serendipity and just go with the flow kind of thing. And with South by Southwest especially, that's definitely a conference you have to do that because your schedule's kind of out the window as soon as you arrive a lot of times because of the chaos.
Yes.
But it is a good line and something smart to keep in mind as you do these things.
I have just jotted that down, and I will certainly use that. That's so true. He was absolutely on target on that one.
Yeah. So we first connected, I think it was on the podcast anyways, back in 2010 when I was a guest on Social Geek Radio.
Yes.
Also with BJ when BJ was co-host.
Yes.
And for those who don't know BJ, he also ran digital marketing for Tasty Delight and wrote a book about it too.
He did.
So how has podcasting helped you grow your network?
Well, I've been doing my podcast, Social Geek Radio, for the last 4 years, and it has allowed me to meet folks like yourself that, I had to do a search and find out, who do I want on my podcast? Who's that expert or guru in the social space and in franchising? So my reach has expanded, and what it's done, not so much for me, but what it's done for like the franchise industry, because that's really the space that I work in within franchising. It's given franchisors and franchisees and those entrepreneurs a touch and feel of people that they didn't know. I mean, to me, who doesn't know Jason Falls? Well, there's a lot of folks who don't in franchising because it's not that industry. He's in that social world, cyberspace that they're not familiar with, but he has such good content and information to share, so that when I had him on Social Geek Radio, I had folks saying, God, I didn't know Jason, and now I'm going to buy his book and I'm going to follow his best practices. So it's certainly opened those doors and allowed me to meet people that I've never met before. Guy Kawasaki. I mean, I love Guy, and he was on Social Geek Radio. But what I think I get the most enjoyment of it is what it gives to the industry and the folks who follow Social Geek Radio. And that means the world to me, that I can provide information to them that they normally wouldn't have access to.
And I can't believe you're celebrating 200 episodes in November. That's great.
Oh, 200. It's like, who would have thought when BJ and I first started this, it was, all right, we need to do more in the digital space. And he's such a geek. And I was a geek wannabe. I want to follow you. What can we do? And Blog Talk Radio was not new, but it was new for us. And said, we'll give it a try. 4 years later, I have another co-host now, Jack Munson with Engage 1-to-1. He's out of Connecticut. It's just been awesome. It's like 200. Wow. Can't believe it. But yes, we're going to celebrate 200 on November 19th.
That's great. Happy anniversary, or congratulations, I guess, and anniversary.
Thank you, sir.
So what have some of the biggest challenges been for you as far as podcasting goes?
I know what day I'm going to do it. So that's not a challenge. Like every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central, I'm going to be doing my podcast. But keeping ahead of what's coming out there, so that the things to share and guest, and trying to juggle those guest schedules and get the right folks on. I do have a funny story, a challenge one time as a podcast, and now mine is live, so I have to go with the flow, and it's live. My guest, who I had vetted out before the show, thought he was going to be awesome. He came with good recommendations and references. He showed up drunk.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not kidding you. He
no.
was at what was a vodka tasting, and he told me he was going to be at an event, but he'd go into a quiet space and he'd call into the show. Okay, that's cool. We all do that. We're on the run. We can do that. But he was slurring. It's like, where are you right now? What is this event? Oh, it's a vodka tasting. It's the best in the world. I've tasted 10. It's like, oh, dear God, what am I going to do with this? We went with it. A.K. Stout was my co-host at the time.
Yeah.
I was annoyed. She was having fun with it. That particular podcast was getting hits and traffic like you wouldn't believe. And what we saw and read on the reviews was, okay, these hosts, Deb and AK, really handled this situation quite well. And I still got good content and information out of it. Would I do it again? No. I thought about taking it down, and the guest begged us to take it down. It's like, sorry, we're getting a lot of traffic from this, and it wasn't negative. So it might not have shown the best light of him. Right. But it was quite entertaining, and it's like, nope, it's not going away.
Yeah, especially when it's live, too. I mean, there's not really much. I mean, in theory, you could take it down, but I mean, it's still live to those listening to Blog Talk Radio at the time, too.
Oh, and the tweets. And that was the thing, too. You're trying to monitor the tweets and see what's going on, and it's like, oh my gosh, people are talking about it because they're saying, you got to listen to this guy. He's hilarious. It's like, oh. Yes, lessons learned. So you talk about challenges. There you go.
That's why at New Business Networking Radio, we have a breathalyzer for all our guests.
Yes.
So thank you for passing that, by the way.
If you did it for coffee, Sorry, I would fail miserably.
This show is fueled by coffee. I don't think it would even exist if it wasn't for coffee. In fact, I'd probably still be in bed. So there you go.
And chocolate.
Right. Oh, and chocolate too, of course. So if you had to start over today, what would you do to build your network from the ground up?
Oh, that's a good question. That's tough. What would I do? I think I would have to choke down. I don't like to ask for help. I just, I don't ask for help or referrals, or I want to be able to do it myself and control things. And I think that's what I had to do. I'd have to rely on more people and saying, and admit, I can't do this alone. I've got a great network and I've got a lot of friends, and maybe I need to ask for that assistance. And actually yesterday, I did just that, and it wasn't on podcasting, but it was on social media, and I used my social media community and said, I've got this situation. I need some help. What can you do to help me? And they really came through. And the pouring of the heartfelt responses and help, and it's like, wow, this is pretty cool. We've got a great social community out there, and a lot of folks I've never met that are willing to help. So that would be my advice: is don't hesitate to reach out there and ask for assistance. And
yeah, it's funny you say that, actually, because I just interviewed Jason Sadler, also known as Jason Surfer App, on episode 33, and he actually said that was I usually use a quote from the guest for the show, and his quote was, "You don't get what you don't ask for." And he hit on that, and I've been guilty of that too in the past, of whether it's crazy weird pride or I don't know what it is, but like a lack of the courage to go and admit, like, I got a bit of a problem here, I need some help, or not even a problem necessarily, but at least going ahead and asking opinions and asking for help about stuff. And I think if you have a good circle or a good network of people that you can reach out to and say, hey, here's what I'm struggling with, or here's what I'm dealing with, what do you think, that you're going to get that honest, good feedback.
Right. And it's very heartwarming, because we're not perfect. I'd like for my grandchildren to think I am. Gigi knows it all, but I'm not perfect. And sometimes you have to admit that little imperfection and flaw, or assistance and help. And, they can reach out and they can help or not, and that's okay. But most times you're going to find your community really, really wants to see you succeed. And that is worth more money than you can put in ads.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And
so,
when it comes to your network, how do you keep up with people? I mean, is it... do you have a CRM tool, or what
It's called my smartphone.
Yeah.
And if I can't do anything without it. I use a couple of tools, whether it's for Facebook posting, things like that. You have to rely on some of those tools and scheduling. But a lot of it is just having my lifeline, and that's my phone, is making sure that my Skype is on there, my podcasts are on there, my Facebook, my Twitter, my whatever it is. And that's really how I manage a lot of that.
So you have all your contacts in your network at your fingertips, but as far as keeping up with people, do you have any sort of tool or any way to say, oh gosh, I haven't talked to Joe Schmo in ages, or do you do it sort of as you think about it, kind of thing?
You brought up a really good point. It is as I think about it, as they pop up in my various platforms and a point of reference. But if somebody has the best tool out there, and Dave, you probably have it, I'm certainly open to using it. So no, I do it the old school way. It's just top of mind.
Yeah, I've been using. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
I was going to say, which is not a good thing. So I'm certainly open to something new.
No, and I think the bulk of how I follow up with, or not follow up, but how I keep up with people in my network is sort of the same way that you're doing it too, as I see them in my timeline and think about them. But some ways I found, I use a service called Contactually, which I quite like as well, which allows me to put people in different buckets. So, for example, I could put you in podcasting and in another bucket of like franchising or franchises. And that way, if I have a friend who's looking for someone who's an expert or someone that needs, if they need help in franchising, I can go through my network and see through those buckets and see different people and see, okay, Deb's an expert in that. And absolutely. So I should connect the two. And that gives me an opportunity to reach out to you again and to connect you with that person. So you're sort of,
we'll explore that.
It allows you to provide some value to the folks in your network through those introductions. But then another thing I do too, which I actually wrote about in the book, is you can export. You don't necessarily even have to, but you can export your Facebook birthdays to a separate calendar in your G calendar or iCal or whatever you use. And then you can, so it gives you, because a lot of times with Facebook birthdays or, with LinkedIn notifications like that, you get them day of.
Right.
But if you're looking at it sort of at the beginning of the month and look at like everybody whose birthday's coming up in the month, that gives you some lead time to reach out to them ahead of time, just as a reminder to go, oh gosh, I haven't even talked to that person forever. Or to follow, or to even send them a birthday card or a gift or something like that, depending on, the relationship, of course. So.
You make an excellent point. One of the things that I like to do is on my bookshelf, I have all of my favorite reads directly behind me. And your book is right there. And nice. I say Tasty Delight is there. Yeah. One of the things I like to do on a regular basis is pull those books down and skim back through, because I remember now you writing about that. But I have to go back and remind myself, I haven't done this yet. So I'll go back and pull my books down. And this is where I'm a paper person, even though I have a lot of books on my iPad or Kindle. But I'll pull it down. Oh, I dog-deer that page, or I highlighted that, or I put a little red sticky note. Have I done that yet? Yeah. And I like to go back through my books and say, dang, I got to go back and implement that, because it wasn't good at that time, but it certainly is good for me to implement today.
You're definitely not alone there too. I mean, I suffer from that too, where like I'll go through and yeah, I almost feel like, and I don't do it enough just because there's not enough time in a day, but for me to, I do like highlight or, whether it's on paper or electronically. But if I had the time, what I should be doing is really writing blog posts about the books that I'm reading, and then including, and I know people that do this, and almost like a mini book report, or like the 10 key takeaways you took from whatever book, because in writing those notes, it helps you remember those points, but it also is a quick reference for you to get back to, right. You refer back to that blog post and go, oh gosh, I have to, do whatever that thing is.
Yep. I used to do that too.
Yeah,
try to write that blog post like, okay, this is a great read. Here are the tips. And it's like, thanks, Dave. You just reminded me of something else that I need to get back to.
Hey, I'm just as guilty though. So yeah.
This is true.
Yeah. So a few last questions before we go. What is your favorite app right now? What app are you using that you love?
Oh, my favorite app. I'm going to have to say it's Charity Miles. And I know I made a reference to it earlier.
Yeah.
I am all about, I wish I could give financially more to the charities. There's so many out there, and I just don't have the finances. But what I can do is give of myself. And I am faithful about trying to walk every day. That's my point of exercise. And if I'm going to walk 1 mile or 3 miles, I can open up that app and I can give to that charity of choice, which, I walk for somebody. I'll walk for that relative that has cancer, or I'm going to walk for that friend whose father has Alzheimer's. So I feel like I'm giving away that way. So by far, Charity Miles is top of the list.
It's very cool. Yeah. And I'm not familiar with it actually. And I have been, getting better at going out for walks and runs and things. So
CharityMiles.org.
Okay. So the app tracks your progress, I assume. And then you are rewarded with some sort of like, monetary or some sort of money or points or whatever that then go to that charity?
Yeah. So Charity Miles collects the donations. So, they collect the funds. It's a free app. I walk. So I then will see on my Facebook page, or I'll post it to, you can link it to Facebook or Twitter and say, okay, Deb just walked 3 miles for Alzheimer's. So I'm not getting a badge of any type. I'm sharing on my social channels that I've just walked for Alzheimer's. And what's happened is that I will have then on Facebook or Twitter, somebody will respond to me and say, I am so glad you did that today because my dad has Alzheimer's. Or one that hit home, a month or so ago is I did not know a very good friend of mine is suffering from leukemia, and I walked for leukemia, and I got that personal message that said, I don't share this with everybody, but I'm suffering from leukemia, and seeing that you've walked for me today, I walked for her. I walked for leukemia, but she thought I walked for her. Yeah. And know that, my steps contributed some funds, Charity Miles, and sent funds to the leukemia organization, made her day. It's like, oh, you've just made my day. This is why I do it.
I will check that app out.
Oh, please do.
Yeah. What's a favorite book that you've read recently?
Oh, geez. I just read A Brother's Love, a memoir. It is written by one of the new franchisors that we're working with. His name is Matt Kubler, Cubbler, and he tells a story about his brother Andy, who grew up with disabilities and died tragically in a car accident. So it has a sad ending at the age of 21. But what it showed me is it's what made Matt who he is today, who is a police officer, a farmer, former Iraq veteran, sky marshal, and now owns and is franchising a concept called Max Out Strength in Pennsylvania. So I did not know that side of Matt. I mean, I know Matt, and he's a great guy, and then I stumbled that he wrote this book years ago. So it made it personal. So, yeah.
Okay, I'll include links.
It wasn't even a leadership. It was just a really good story about an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'll definitely include links to everything we're talking about at nbnradio.com so everybody can find the notes. And how can people get a hold of you?
The best way is through email, deb@franchisefoundry.com, or Twitter, debce. Or LinkedIn, Deb Evans 01. So, just do a Deb Evans search. There's lots of us out there, but I'm doing my best to just knock them down in the rankings and I pop first.
All right. Well, let's all support Deb and get her on top of search results.
Please.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you taking the time with me today, and best of luck with the podcast and everything you're working on.
Thank you. And I hope to see you again pretty soon in IRL.
Yes, definitely. Talk to you later, Deb.
Bye-bye.
I love Deb's enthusiasm about growing and nurturing her own network. Be sure to check out her podcast, Social Geek Radio. It's always a really interesting conversation. She has great guests. And she's living proof, too, that you can use podcasting as a great medium to meet interesting people and perhaps grow your network with those folks, too. So definitely something to consider. I also want to point out how she organizes people in meetups and jogging groups at different conferences. What a wonderful way to meet new people while you're attending an event. Be that connector. By organizing little mini events like that, you are the person responsible for connecting people. And this is something I have had great success with in my own career, and I really do encourage you to try this too. Have you done something similar to this or attended something similar? I would love to hear about it. Visit nbnradio.com, episode 35, leave a comment there. Or, better yet, leave an audio comment by recording it at speakpipe.nbnradio.com. And of course, leave your own networking tip while you're there. All right, I will be back next week with a brand new interview and much more. Thank you to all of the NBN Club members who are listening right now. You guys are awesome. And thank you for listening. If you're not an NBN Club member, visit nbnclub.com and maybe you'll join us there. Either way, it's cool. I love having you here. Until next week, over to you, Heather.
Thanks for listening to New Business Networking Radio. Visit nbnradio.com for show notes, links, and special goodies. NBN Radio is available in iTunes and Stitcher. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating and review. Thanks for listening. See you next time.